Today, to remove confusion, I put Beej and Heather beside each other. This is ChillPoint. See,
wow, yeah.
It's so weird.
Doesn't this make more sense now?
You did not have that set up that way when we were setting up. You fiend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works great.
Mm-hmm. This is... Yeah. There was some people who were like, what's going on with you sitting in the middle of Beej and Heather when they're in the same place? So this way, everything makes perfect sense. Or we could go back to this way.
Okay. I like this way.
Me too.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to ChillPoint, the show where we talk about this week's checkpoint, and we talk about video game stories that have either we didn't talk about originally, or in the case of today, have happened in the surprisingly dense video game news section of Thursday afternoon and Friday morning. Because apparently that is something that happened in an extremely rude way.
I had just gotten done in the previous checkpoint, not the previous checkpoint, but the previous checkpoint, thanking Nintendo for doing something during Wednesday so we would be able to report on it on Thursday.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they said, well, time to do Friday.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably not totally on them. I'm sure that is very much this is the Pokemon Company.
No, I think what happened is last Chill Point, we made fun of BlizzCon for not putting out their news in a timely manner that we thought was prompt.
Yes.
And then all the other video game companies felt left out.
Yeah.
All of them. Except for Microsoft. But I don't keep up with them ever, so.
All right, well...
It doesn't matter anyway, because if there's anything that happened during those things that we want to report on for next checkpoint, we'll just do it anyway.
Yeah, they can't stop us.
It's true.
What are we doing?
They've tried, but they can't. Let's get into talking about stories, because this week's episode... Now, I don't know if it's the longest episode we've done.
It's 18 minutes.
It is a pretty long episode.
I mean, that includes the outro portion,
but as far as I can tell, going back at least to 2019, this has the longest script of an episode that we've done of Checkpoint, and I believe this had the most graphics. This had something like 40 graphics, shoulder graphics for it.
That is a lot.
Which is I think the most that we've done since we sort of switched over to the current version of Checkpoint. Because there was not only 5 stories where we normally do 4 stories, but they were almost all quite long.
And
no kidding.
What's funny is that Graham's story about Metallica at BlizzCon was originally just going to be coming up, as he put it. And then he's like, I better be sure that I get sometimes you have to do a lot of reading on a story, even if it ends up being only about 7 sentences long. You have to do a lot of reading so you can encapsulate what's important, or you can at least get the joke the way that you want, because we don't want to say anything incorrect when we do the stories, and sometimes that's unavoidable, that you end up saying something that's incorrect.
Or we want the incorrect. We want to know that it's incorrect.
Yeah, because that's part of the goof.
We want we want the incorrect part to be the funny part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those weird things where you it might not be immediately obvious, but you have to actually. You want to actually know what the real story is, so that you can make a dumb version of it, or make fun of it. And if you mess it up, I mean, for one thing, people will write comments about it in YouTube, and we can't have that.
No, we can't have people continue to write comments in YouTube.
I could just turn off the comments section of YouTube, you know. That's a feature. I can do it per video. It doesn't even have to be all of our videos.
But yeah, the
great.
BlizzCon story that we ended up doing was supposed to just be a coming up, and Graham started reading, and he kept reading, and he was like, "Holy crap! Wait, no, wait, hang on! I have things I have to say," and so it turned into a whole story. And we had just finished putting in a really long day of work that day, and I hopped on to the Google Doc to start writing my stories, and he was already like done his first story, and he was kind of like moving into his second or whatever, and I'm just like, where are you getting all this energy from? Like, we are all of us were finished. And he was like, I don't know, man, I just sat down and started writing, and it just kind of, and I was like, I don't like it.
The news calls to you.
Well, and that's the thing, is because then I sat down and started writing, and I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a cell phone charger story. Okay, I'm going to start writing.
Yeah.
I'll just make some notes, and then I'll come back to this later when I feel a little bit less, like, whatever. And it's, oh my God, it's all falling out of my fingers. Oh my God! You know, like, that's kind of how it goes sometimes. It all spills out of your body.
As Meatloaf says, you know, sometimes it don't come easy, and sometimes it don't come hard. Sometimes you spend the entire day on like one little short bit, right? You spend like 2 hours researching a thing, trying to write it, and it just doesn't happen.
It's why I'm glad that you write the night before instead of the morning of. Because it gives you more time to actually research things if you want to.
Yeah.
You didn't have to like kind of start ahead of time, but it also gives you that chance to sleep on it, wake up the next morning and look at your stuff and be like, I didn't write anything legible.
Yeah.
And fix it or find out if new details have hit, if you can fit them in.
Yeah. When we used to write, like when I would arrive at the moon base 2 hours before checkpoint, and Paul is busy like setting stuff up, and now I'm there like reading the thing and being like, oh, that's funny. Okay, here's what I'm going to write for the story. And I've got like, I have 30 minutes to write that, because Paul has to then find a bunch of graphics, and I'm not helping him with that. He has to read the story and figure out what the graphics are, and then get that all set up, and then we have to go ahead and stream this live.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I've definitely, it's nice not to be sourcing graphics like for the first part of the story while the second part of the story is being written, because obviously sometimes then it changes. But anyway, let's get going here, talking about some stuff. Anthem
Anthem
is a game,
and done
is a game which you will be forgiven for not remembering, because unfortunately it has had a somewhat beleaguered life. And there was a whole, about 6 months ago, there was a whole thing about that Anthem Next, that they were going to do a complete revamp of it, and apparently we're working really hard on that. And the EA lowered the boom on it, and they looked at what we got. It's like at a certain, and as Graham said in the story, kudos for not falling for the sunk cost fallacy and looking at it with, fresh eyes, or realistically looking at it and just being like, there's no way this is ever gonna. It's like, it's a. Even if it was a brand new game, right? Like, it's a really tough market to break into these days. Team shooter, looter shooter area.
Didn't when they initially announced Anthem, there were like 2 other games of that genre also coming out at the same time?
Yeah, like Apex Legends, I think, was coming out just about the same time that Anthem was supposed to be coming out, or it came out just before. I kept screwing up.
Yeah, there was a lot of confusion if you hadn't picked one.
Yeah, what I think is I did a little bonus reading, because I saw that Ars Technica ended up doing a little bit more. Sam Matchkovich, I think that's how you say his name. Doesn't really matter to me, because he'll correct me one day if we ever meet, I'm sure. But Sam at Ars Technica did an article following up on other things going on at BioWare, and making reference specifically to Dragon Age 4, which is a working title, but it is supposed to be the fourth thing in the Dragon Age series at BioWare, where they successfully lobbied to have the online multiplayer aspect removed from Dragon Age 4. Because and he puts this as EA versus BioWare in this respect, where EA was, because like there were some parts of the company that were very into the idea of online multiplayer, EA, and then there were some parts of the company that were not, BioWare, and it's like really heavy-handed kind of how he was making this clear. But this is this thing where EA's had this standing push within the company, I guess, for a lot of their games to be like, sure, you can make a game, studio we own, but it better have an online multiplayer component to it.
Has to have
something we can put a lot of microtransactions in.
Has to have online multiplayer because that's going to be a way for them to monetize something or other to do with it. I'm sure they're like, it has to have multiplayer. And yeah, I think microtransactions become the major part of what's pushing that, because it's the sense of like, this is the thing we know that we know makes us a consistent revenue, and so everything has to have it, and that's what we want. So put it in there. Mm-hmm. And BioWare finally was like, well, we're going to fight that. And with the failure of Anthem, I think that was something that this fight has probably been going on for a while. And I mean, Anthem's thing too was, as Sam puts in the articles, like, Anthem had like a lot of good gameplay, like it had a lot of voiced story development and stuff like that. But you couldn't hear any of the voice story development because the online voice chat lobbies were drowning out all of the voice lines and all of the story development that was going on. And so it was like this was probably a mistake. And I'm sure the people at BioWare who made Anthem are very proud of the product. And trying to go back and rework it to turn it into something that would actually
well, I mean, my understanding is when it launched, it didn't have all the things that they had said it was going to have, or something. And then they had like a big plan Gantt chart thing that was like, we're totally gonna do all the cool things, but they were busy fixing things.
And I, and it worries me whenever I hear news about something that happens at BioWare. We have friends who work at BioWare. And so it always makes me wonder, I'm like, how's that going to affect my friends who work there? Did they just get but did their team just get paved? And now are they moving on to something else? Do they have to leave the company? Like, you get all those kind of like worries there because it's all people.
It is, and one of the positive things about this is that this was a reorganization, that they took the Anthem team and are reassigning them to these other projects. So, at least from what we have been able, from what has been reported, this isn't a actual like team, a bunch of people being fired. This is more of a reorganization of resources. So that's good anyway. Yeah. It's like these online, like the online game space is so brutal. Like, when along, like, say you're making a new Final Fantasy game or a new JRPG, right? And like
some kind of battle royale, maybe.
No, but like if you're making that kind of a game, it might be like a 60 or 70 hour game. Or maybe sometimes they even go up a little higher than that. But that's that's like a really substantial JRPG, and you're competing against other games that are kind of in that area. But the number of 60-hour games that people can play in a year is not that many, because that takes a lot of time. An online game people put hundreds of hours into, right? Like people have put hundreds, thousands of hours into, Fortnite or Destiny or Division or
Animal Crossing,
all these different online games, and they all reward you for progressing in the game, and they have all sorts of ways to make sure you keep playing, and you can't play like. A person cannot play, 5 1,000-hour games in a year. Or
No,
Yeah,
you
right?
generally pick one. Maybe
And
you
so-
have two.
And so, like, the market, even if there aren't as many games, the market is way smaller. Like, the potential number, like, the hours people are playing is very, very high. But the number of games that the market can sustain is actually surprisingly low.
Yeah.
And every game gets better the more people who are playing it. And every game gets and there's a lot of encouragement not to move to a different game because all your friends are in your game, in one game. So it's like the market can only really sustain, like, maybe half a dozen of these sort of big multiplayer games at any given time. And you can see that in the like, as just as a random sampling. You can see that in like the top things on Twitch, right? That like when a new game comes in, something else has got to drop. It's
Yeah.
it's a zero-sum game.
Well, and then and you have this constant, because it's the constant jockeying for attention and therefore money that also.
But like when a new one comes out, that's generally like when Sea of Thieves came out, a lot of people played it when it came out,
Yeah.
and then that drops off, and it's like there's still some people who play it, but everyone's still playing WoW when a new thing of that drops, and
Yeah.
Fortnite and whatever the other ones are.
And you end up with people looking at what the gameplay loops are like that. Well, that's the thing, is the utter refinement of a gameplay loop as well. You start to see how any game that comes out is you're trying to do something novel enough to appeal to people to come up in the first place, to be like, I will be a part of this game and I will start devoting a few hundred hours to it. And it's like, now we better make sure that the reward cycle in this game is enough.
Yeah,
That,
well,
that
you're
keeps
gonna
this person
get
playing it for a long time.
you're gonna get games like, I'm sure, like the Final Fantasy 14 online stuff is a thing where there are people who play it consistently, but when it gets a new story package, everyone's on it again until they're done that. And then there's like just the people who continue with it, and other people who go on to a different game because a new story pack is dropped for that, right?
Like every time a new WoW expansion is announced, inevitably in the video games channel where a lot of us chat, somebody is in there who used to play WoW or who kind of sporadically plays WoW, and they're like, oh shit, Frost Heave is being at. Well, I'm probably gonna play when Frost Heave shows up. Blinker Fluid is a new expansion. I guess I'm gonna have to get that Blinker Fluid. Like it's that thing of like they're like, it's gonna bring me back full time, I think, and then you don't hear about them playing it at all, and then the new thing is announced. Like, I guess I'm gonna come back and do that, and then like in 3 months when it launches, they maybe do for like a month, and then they drop it again.
Yeah,
And it's
but that's why you get games like Fortnite constantly being like, oh, we have a new thing added to it, or we're doing a new event, we're doing this thing, we're doing that thing. Please constantly be wanting to log into our game.
Yeah.
I
and
love
it's exhausting.
I love for WoW in particular. I love the reaction that a lot of our friends have who are big WoW players, or especially former WoW players. There's this like excitement mixed with kind of anger, almost being like, it's like there's a new expansion coming out. I guess I'm gonna have to play. God damn.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
What's that? A new strain of heroin?
Hey now.
I guess I'll do a little of it. Just to be fair, I need to know how it is.
I mean, maybe they fixed the stuff I didn't like.
Yes.
Anyway, so, and that's why you see, I mean, we've done stories on CheckPoint about it with various, the various sort of also rans in this category, which Anthem is one, but is going to be one now. But you'll see sometimes these like MMOs or big online games and stuff that are, especially ones that are server based, they'll be canceled, or like they'll go dead after like 6 months, which seems ridiculous. Like it seems to be like, how can you possibly know? Like how can you? Like the game's only been out for 6 months and you're turning off the servers? Like what the hell? But they know, like, they've got tons and tons of research on this thing. There's the curve of adoption, and it's like it's never going to get higher than it is now, and where it is now is not high enough. There's no point in leaving this thing on life support.
Yeah.
Let's just cut it and make a new game that has a lot of the same assets, maybe.
One thing that did get me too, because I had said to Graham's examples he brought for the story are like, No Man's Sky had a little team that could actually pivot really fast and add in all the things they needed to do and get rolling. And Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn was like, the whole company's like, we got to make changes, and they get in there and they do that. And they find a way to
crash the moon.
To crash the moon, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, so I said to him, but you didn't mention Fortnite. And he's like, well, Fortnite's not quite the same thing. Like Fortnite was, the save the world kind of thing. The original. I'm going to build my base and have a zombie fighting thing and whatever. And then they were like, why don't we just bolt on the battle royale thing? Yeah, and then that became became so interesting that it was like, this is the thing that a lot of people want to play. So this isn't a sense of we need to revamp this whole game because it's failing. It was more like, we want to add this thing onto the game because we think that it would be a fun thing to add on, and maybe people will really appreciate having this kind of thing. And then they do that and realize that everyone's flocking to play it.
Yeah,
so they start improving that instead, and then not focusing on the original thing until they can come back to it and try to add that back on. So and I see how that is a little different. Like there's minor nuance there, right? But anyway,
Fortnite more evolved than anything.
Yeah. I always feel a little bad for people who are like super into the Fortnite Save the World mode. They're like, oh yeah, you play Fortnite? Oh yeah, I do. But not the one you want to play.
Yeah, I played the one where there was a class action lawsuit.
Yeah,
but we can talk about that in a minute.
I mean, we might as well mention it now.
All
sure.
Right.
I mean, we were talking about enticing people to come back, and so this was the coming out, but Fortnite or Epic, I should say, had a class action lawsuit about random loot boxes in Fortnite Save the World and in Rocket League. Which I don't entirely know what the complaint was. I think it was that they were misrepresenting how common certain things were, like how
percentages is generally why that happens.
And so for one thing, as somebody who doesn't play Fortnite, I was actually I had not realized that Fortnite doesn't actually have random loot boxes, or like the normal Fortnite mode doesn't have random loot boxes, which I was slightly surprised at. But then after I realized that I guess they just don't want to get into it if they were in the process of dealing with this lawsuit. I can understand why they would not want to do it. And yeah, they didn't lose the lawsuit, they settled, so they didn't actually go to court.
So they were never guilty.
And the way, well, I mean, and that's what they say. Like,
liable.
That's what that's the statement, right? Is like, we feel that we're not in the wrong here, but it would take so much time and effort to litigate it. We're just going to settle. Also, we can settle for $27 million in-game currency, which literally costs us nothing. Sure.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, that's weird. That's really weird.
That seems like a very bad deal. I don't know who like that's like it's not even giving away like you get free like Epic pens or something. Like it's not even giving away marketing material because it doesn't cost Epic anything. All it costs Epic is the potential of money you might have spent in the store. But if you were part of the lawsuit, you probably weren't anyway.
Well, it also costs them the efforts of their legal team, which means it also cost the people who were having the class action lawsuit the efforts of their legal team and how much that must have come to. And that is a thing I didn't realize. I was like, oh Jesus! Normally, when there's settlements like this, if your lawyers are working on a retainer. if your lawyers are working basically kind of like in that on spec method where it's like you'll get paid when we get paid out, that means that the lawyers got to walk away with a shit ton of V-Bucks.
There's probably like something for it's like we'll pay the lawyers and give the V-Bucks or something. Because it can't be.
I don't think the lawyers would have allowed for it then. Yeah.
I feel like if there's any part that the lawyers would be like very good at is making sure they get paid.
Yeah, and now when I heard this, the comment I made is I'm like, well, this makes a lot of sense that they would settle for V-Bucks because it's if you go to a restaurant and you have a poor experience at a restaurant, like you're there for an hour and a half and they don't even take your drink order or whatever, or you do get your drinks and they suck, or you do get your meal and it's just like cold and whatever, and you're just having a terrible time, and you're like, I'm F it, and you just get up and you're like, you go and complain, like, I'm not paying my bill, I'm not doing whatever, and the manager comes out and the idea is that the manager's supposed to be like, I'm very sorry that you've had a bad experience here. We're going to comp your entire meal. So we're very sorry about that. You don't have to pay anything for that. Also, here's a gift card, here's a voucher, here's whatever for like $50 or $100 or whatever it is. To like come back another night, give us a try again, because we might have had a bad experience tonight. There might have been a problem with staffing. There might have been a problem with something else, invisible, whatever. But the customer doesn't care. You give them the thing so that they come back at least one more time to try everything out. Because one of two things happens: either they come back, they try the place with the card, they have a good experience, and that's fine, and that way they came back, or they never come back and they never spend the money that's on that card to use that voucher and it didn't cost you anything in the first place. And to get them to come back like that is like, that's the encouragement. You are losing a little bit of money, you're maybe losing the retail cost of the food, like of the meal, but you really didn't lose that because you might gain them back as a customer to be like, well, at least they tried to take care of us, and we can grant them some leeway there.
Sure.
This is the same kind of thing.
Well, okay, but if I sue a restaurant, I don't expect them to give me gift cards to go to their restaurant.
That's true.
That's the aspect that's weird. Like, it's anyway.
I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I kind of like it's still weird.
Paul had a better take on that than I did the other day when we were talking about what this is actually like.
I mean, my thought was just like you're a cigarette company paying for lawsuits in like cartons of cigarettes, basically. Like, oh, sorry, you got lung cancer. Here's a bunch of free cigarettes.
Yeah,
but look, you know. Now, the interesting thing about class action lawsuits here is that you can be part of a class action. Like, if you're part of the class, you might not actually know that you're part of the class.
Yeah.
So you know what? If you bought loot boxes on Fortnite or on Rocket League in a certain amount of time, there's might be 1,000 V-Bucks waiting for you. So, you know, if you like. Might as well get yours while you can. But it's a weird thing. And you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm honestly actually kind of impressed that Epic doesn't use random loot boxes. That like everything like Fortnite, you know, obviously has insanely huge amounts of DLC. And you know, microtransaction content, but the fact that it is all just buy the thing, get the thing, is actually not like that's actually kind of good. Like I can respect that a lot more than the random box thing. So anyway,
I mean, there's lots of, depending on what area you're in on the world, there's different laws about how loot boxes have to be handled.
Yeah,
and generally. In some other areas, they have to have percentages. They have to have a clear thing that's like, here's what you can get your payout, but other places don't. And
yeah, I mean,
stuff happens about that all the time.
You can complain about the fact that you're being nickeled and dimed, but that is how a candy store works.
What else are you gonna do with all those nickels and dimes? Pay for parking?
Yeah, but I get to pick the candy I want.
Yeah, but you get to do that in Fortnite as well. You might be nickeled and dimed into paying for dozens and dozens of skins so you don't look like a default, but that is how a candy store works.
Also, we need to change that to like loonied and toonied.
Loonied and toonied. Yeah, because you can't use nickels and dimes in parking meters anymore.
Yeah, your nickels and dimes buy you basically nothing these days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I could find a 5-cent candy store somewhere if I looked hard enough.
All right.
Next story.
Next story. So, is talking about violence in video games stuff. This is old hat, I'm sure, to all of you who are watching. And you know, Graham covered it pretty thoroughly. The thing that I think is a good is a good takeaway from this, and it's something that I saw actually in the comments on YouTube, is that this guy Marcus C. Evans Jr., Representative Marcus Evans, is actually quite well liked in the district, from what I understand. And as Graham said, knowing nothing about the guy, but looking at his platforms, it's a lot of some very solid stuff about the raising minimum wage and all that good stuff. So it's which kind of makes this whole thing like more kind of unfortunate that he's somebody has gotten him
into believing that people are carjacking over a video game,
into believing that this is a thing, B, that it's like a fight worth fighting for, and that this will actually help at all. Obviously, the fact that there's a bunch of increasing carjacking is something to be concerned about. But the idea that video games, especially a game like Grand Theft Auto, where it's just like you walk up to a car and push a button and steal it, like the idea that that's why kids are jacking cars is because they think that it's really easy because they've been playing Grand Theft Auto. Like, even if that was the case, they'll be corrected very quickly the first time they try it. Like, anyway,
like my thought on when I think about why you would do a carjacking versus just stealing like a car that's unoccupied, is that you do a carjacking because it's supposed to be easier to, like, the keys are in the ignition, the car's already running. If you get there at the right time and you yank somebody out before before they can drive away or whatever, like that kind of thing, it's like, sure, but then what do you do with the car? It's not a joyride situation, I don't think, because you've walked up to a vehicle, you've taken whatever, you're taking the risk of being able to get it or don't. There has to be a larger reason for that. You have to be like, I have to steal this car because I need to turn it into something that I need, which is either like it's either a reputation or credibility, or it's money.
I mean, it's generally a really ill thought out plan to decide to just not read the full instructions of what you're going to do with the car. First.
Like,
so
like in GTA, carjacking is really more of like you're basically like using it as like a car sharing service. Really,
more than anything else. Like there's the times you have to steal something because you have to like deliver a certain number of cars to wherever, like Gone in 60 Seconds. But
like often in GTA, you don't own your own car, and so to get anywhere in it's like a car sharing service that the other people don't know that they're participating in.
Yes. Yeah.
And sometimes their car gets destroyed as part of the car sharing.
Yeah, it's like how they put all the in Breath of the Wild where you can just take random horses,
They're not occupied by people.
No, but you just take a horse is out running around having a good time,
there aren't, like,
and you come along
cars.
And you're like, nope, you're mine, and then you ride the horse for a while.
Cars don't exist in the wild for you to just take.
And then you let that horse go when you get to the location that you gotten to. And
what
I'm saying is, if we just had Sheikah Slate technology, that we wouldn't have to like warp. We could just warp from place to place, and we wouldn't have to like steal horses.
Oh my goodness!
Have you ever like just been going around and see like one of those like budget rent-a-cars or whatever, like car rentals or car dealerships that are in a parking lot?
Mm-hmm.
That always struck me as being slightly shady. It's
it's
like it makes sense because there's lots of space to park their rental cars, but it's also like, are you sure you know which of these cars is your car? Is like the budget rental car, and which ones are just like
you walk out the parking lot, you hit the button on the fob, and you listen for the car that opens, and you get into that car, and it's like, God, I hope this didn't set out the wrong car. Like, 2 or 3 cars open up, you're like, oh no.
No choices.
But it is kind of it's like this is this upset is a thing, but it's kind of like this twigs me a bit because it is this sense of we modify a law that already exists to add more things to that law, one of which does not really suit this. It's largely a thing about no video games that have these depictions of violence, and also thieving a motor vehicle that has a driver or passenger inside of it. And I'm like, okay, so what if in Illinois, Grand Theft Auto, like what if Rockstar just modifies the games? Like, are you in Illinois? Great. All the cars just start driving around with no people in them.
I don't think they will. I think they just won't sell in Illinois.
No. I think Rockstar would do that. They'd be like, if you're in Illinois, there'll be a modification in the game that when you'll go to open the door, there'll be ghost cars driving around with nobody inside them, and you'll get into them. They'll do that as a point. They'll do that just to be like, hey, if you don't want to buy our game, then this is how we're going to do it.
So, okay.
It's not what will happen.
To be clear, and I think this is obvious even to the representative involved. Like, this is basically just, like, this is showboating, right? Like, this is not going to get passed.
Well, I mean, because it's not just like, oh, now we're making all games M-rated and you can't sell these games to minors. It's you can't sell these games at all in the state.
Yeah. Like, this isn't going to get passed as a thing. And I don't think it's even really intended to be passed as a law. Like, the Supreme Court has actually shut down similar laws to this in other places. So like I'm pretty sure this is not even intended to really be passed. This is more to be like, look, I'm doing something, which is, it's always kind of frustrating.
It's just annoying,
especially when, I don't know. A personal pet peeve of mine is this: they're adding, like, he wants to modify the definition to add child abuse, sexual abuse, animal abuse, domestic violence, violence against women, and motor vehicle theft and stuff. Human on human violence is already covered. Like, that was part of the definition before, which covers children and women. They count as humans.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad to know that.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that last week.
I feel like you don't need, like, it's just one of those, like, annoying grandstanding things where it's like, we're making this, more tough. And it's like,
I mean, I wouldn't mind if, like, on the label of a game, it had more of, like, a description of what kind of violence, like, especially if you're, like, something like animal violence, which you may or may not see in a violent video game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as much as we make fun of,
warnings are nice.
Sometimes ESRB warnings are silly, but they do. Now we're getting like, when you watch, like, Netflix, the warnings are so, I don't know if they're, like, concerned about people getting upset about the warning or something, but the warnings are so oblique now, where they'll be like, contains situations.
Yeah.
They'll be like, what?
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bad situations? Well, we don't want to make a value judgment about the situations, but there will be some of them.
Yeah.
More than 2 people are in the same room. Okay, good to know.
The Disney Plus warnings have been very descriptive, I've noticed.
I can't think of any of them off the top
No,
of
me
my
neither,
head.
but I have noticed that they do get into very, like, they want to be clear about, here are some things that are happening in
I just mostly notice the ones that are like, okay, this is built for a kids audience, and so we've written the fact that there are small depictions of like tobacco use. And then I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to see if I can find the moment. And I can't because it's some weird background character that you just really never do notice.
Yeah. Next story?
My favorite was always the original Sam and Max Hit the Road. The warning on the box says, it was rated T for teen. And the reason for that was rewards injuring non-violent characters.
Wow.
Because because Max in particular is basically a
Oh, yeah.
psychopath.
Yeah.
But it's that the people you're injuring are non-violent. It's okay if it's like a tit for tat kind of deal, but if the
Yeah.
people you're Anyway, so yeah, I guess I was saying to Heather, it's sort of funny. We have a story about how video games don't cause violence, and then a story about a video game developer trying to figure out how to make the violence better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So id Software was on a live stream recently, and there was either a question or a conversation point where they talked about wanting to create a female version of the Doomslayer.
Sure.
And I mean, this is well trod ground for video game companies. We did the sketch female characters about it.
We did a thing like 2 weeks ago or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also making fun of other female video game thing. Yeah.
I mean, I think I like to bring that sketch up now when these things happen, because it's like because that was like 7 years ago, but it's also like I want it to be that cautionary tale of don't forget, this is how you look, right? That it does not, when a company is like, we've made the default male character, this is how you look. So when you take your first steps forward to do something, you should be cautious, and you should be thinking about what it is you want to do. And I'm going to give Hugo Martin and the team of id some credit that they are clearly thinking about what it is that they want to do. They're not just being like, we're just going to do a palette swap or we're just going to do a model swap or something like that.
I mean, they could get away with it very easily with a thing like that. They could also just change the voice.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And it's not even really even changing the voice. He doesn't talk. He like grunts.
Yeah.
It would be changing other people's voices to like change the pronoun is basically all you would be doing. Like, it's the idea that the physical makeup of the guy inside the Doom armor has any he's got so much like techno magical whatever, like the idea that the physical makeup and the physical capabilities of like a person has any relationship with what the guy is able to do. It's like it makes like no, it's like why bother making even a distinction? It's like it's, you know, we want to make, it's like the female version will be like, you know, whatever, faster, smaller or whatever. It's like it doesn't, there's no the speed,
there's no real reason to do that.
Yeah, like the speed of a person, the speed of the Doom person and the like capabilities is so far removed from what an actual person can do anyway. Yeah, like the Doom guy is got to be like over 90% like alien robotic stuff, right?
What got me is that in the conversation, because this is just basically me taking a bunch of quotes and then being a snarky asshole, and that was a lot of fun. And the interesting bits where it's like, you know, how it impacts the glory kills. Like that's the animated parts where you tear an alien in half, and I'm like,
it's also a first-person game.
Yeah, and it's like, so why would that be different? Because you never actually see the armor and the gloves and all that kind of stuff doing things. It's like you never get to see anything else. But how does a woman glory kill a demon differently? And then what kind of weapons would she use? And I'm like, why would this incredibly overpowered, hyper-aggressive Avatar character only be able to carry a bow? Like, that's the thing. It's like, why she can only use chakrams, you know, like that kind of thing. It's like, as you say, it seems a little unnecessary. And it would be a different type of aggression, which is what really got me. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? But it does mean that these seem like they're all aspects of the conversation they're trying to have, to be like, he's just saying these are things that we have to think about. And I'm like, no, these are things that you should bring up in a meeting to be like, Does it need to be different? Maybe it doesn't need to be different. Why would it ever need to be different? And actually have the larger philosophical conversations about what, when it's a first-person game where all you get is grunting, that's the only, and there's hardly any difference, then do you have to do those things? Let's talk about what it would mean if we did do those things and why it would be necessary to do those things in the first place, or whether it is unnecessary, and what do other people think about that? If we involve, if are women a part of this conversation already? Do they feel like they're being left out? Like,
it's it's like, why bother making it make it, like, this sort of reminds me a little bit of like some of the things you get from game developers, because this is from a live stream, and there's a certain thing that some game developers do when people ask them about stuff. Peter Molyneux, of course, is the prime example of this. The guy, I forget what his name is, the guy who did No Man's Sky also got into trouble with this, is that when people ask him about stuff, and then they sort of talk about...
pontificate?
They speculate in sort of in public, right? They sort of go... People are like, is this a thing? And they'll be like, well, that's an interesting question. It could be like this, or it could be like this, or it could be like this. And it's like, it's like, sure, maybe you're thinking about that stuff, but maybe that's not stuff that you should be like telling as if that's sort of canonical things that are happening in the game, as opposed to just your random speculation off the top of your head. Like, I don't know.
It depends on what they want to do with this. Like, the idea that they're like, we'd like to make it different, we'd like to make a different character, and like, okay, sure, because sometimes characters are different and you want them to do things, but he's always just referred to as the Doom guy, so if he's an Avatar character, then I'm like, I don't see the difference in just making something actually different, or just doing, like, letting me choose some pronouns so that I can be like, yeah, my avatar is this gender. Good. Or not gender, non-binary, like whatever. It's in a suit. I can't see myself most of the time.
Yeah.
I don't need you to make it pink all of a sudden, or suddenly I'd use a magic wand. Like,
and it's first person, so you can't see them most of the time. And it's anyway. It's just like, yeah.
I mean, there are people who, when they played Metroid for the first time, thought that Samus was a robot.
Yeah,
that's just because
it was supposed to be like, it was a reveal when Samus was first, like. But I mean, everyone was talking about that in the comments. Was like, wouldn't it be, and you know, it's, but like the Doomslayer's armor is even more overbuilt than Metroid armor.
Yeah.
I'm sure the guy doesn't actually occupy that much of the of the armor at this point, really.
But that, yeah, it's definitely a it's definitely a there's just some unusual things that come from a person in game development being like, I'm just going to sit here and talk for a bit. It's like, when that happens, sometimes you end up in these positions where it's like, you know, the Slayer's a Ferrari, then what would a female Slayer be? And it's like...
Yeah, that was weird.
Here, it's a car analogy.
I don't know why we need to have a car analogy there at all. And, like, the only... Like, the one that really weirds me out is the different type of aggression. Like, what's that really supposed to mean?
Yeah. What are we getting from that?
What do you mean by that? Have you really thought about the words you just said?
Well,
maybe he just like came out of a really bad breakup and so has like, you know, the type of aggression that makes you take all your stuff and throw it onto the front of your house and change all the locks.
I told Beach that if you wanted to be really stereotype awful with it, men being aggressive is basically like a caveman thing. Women being aggressive is, I want to see your manager.
Yeah.
Like, but nobody wants to play a Doom character who's just talking to aliens, being like, "Shit, let me speak to your manager." Like,
I mean, that
and
would be
there's-
pretty funny, but yes.
Yeah,
That would
that
be a
kind of
terrible
that-
idea for a game.
Let's
it
give
would
her
be
that
awful.
Karen energy. She wants to speak to the demon's manager. She wants to talk to Satan.
I mean, that would make for a fun visual novel, I think. But,
But there is like there is that sense of when it's like a different type of aggression. It's like Western society has male aggression as being, you know, the soldier aggression, right? It's the I'm going to do the, you know, I'm going to get it's the defense and attack and that
Big
kind
guns.
of like, and it's big guns,
Yeah.
and it's like the whole, you know, Doom rip and tear, you know, you have big guts and like all that kind of stuff is meant to be heroic, right? There's a heroism built into a lot of that aggression.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah, but it's built into that aggression. It's like you're a powerful soldier, you're defending this, and you're attacking the bad. And when you think of female aggression, Western society has largely put that as that is an offensive against. It's always pointed at a man, and it's always made to make the man feel like he's done something wrong. And female aggression is very hysterical, right? It's like out of control, emotional kind of thing. And I'm like, you have to, if you wanted to do a different type of aggression, it's like if you put a woman in that situation, it's like the Doomslayer is now Doom Lady, and she's going to be out there with the chainsaw attacking demons. Giving a woman a chainsaw and having her rip people to shreds, people will be like, well, there's something psychological about that. It has to do with the penis. And it's like it doesn't. But in Western society, we have been taught through our culture that that's what that's supposed to mean. And how do you navigate that? And I think that's what this is really referring to is you need to make it aggressive, but you need to make it aggressive in a way that people can do that without having to feel like it's all the same aggression, because people won't think that it's all the same aggression. They'll think like, no, there's something to do with the fact that she's a woman that's making her do this. It's like, oh.
You were talking about the like heroism aspect. I haven't played the most recent one, the Doom Eternal, but I played the Doom, the whatever, just one's called Doom Reboot 2016 or whatever.
Yeah.
And what I like about there's the aspect of that where it isn't really heroic. Like the Doom guy is essentially just like a thermonuclear warhead that just goes into situations and destroys and kills everything. And you meet several, and there's this whole thing where like even the demons are scared of him. Like there's like demonic texts about how scary this guy is. And you meet humans, who are part of this whole thing. And they and you get sent on missions and stuff, kind of like, it's like, go here and unlock all this stuff. And almost inevitably, you end up just destroying the thing. And then the person who sent you on the mission is like, why did you destroy that?
It's like, that is my function.
And it's like, you don't understand. This is not a guy you send on a mission. This is, you stand on the next planet, drop him on the planet, and then come back 3 weeks later, and the planet is has no life on it. He's not. He doesn't appear to have any kind of logical reasoning capabilities at all. He's just, if it moves, destroy it with whatever I happen to be holding right now, even if that's my fist. He's not like somebody who's thinking out what they're doing. Anyway, let's I guess Metallica is the other thing, which
and Pichu.
Oh right, Pichu.
Yeah.
Speaking of destroying stuff, I don't know. But yeah, obviously, everybody wants the charger of Pichu cradling the phone with the with the little thing, the
MagSafe charger.
MagSafe, or it's not even MagSafe. It's just like an RF charger or whatever.
No, I thought it was actually a MagSafe charger. Okay, cool. Well, whatever, but it's a Qi charger is what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's
a Qi charger thing in the. The only problem I saw with it is that it looks super cute when he's holding a phone. When he's not holding a phone, it just looks like he's got this weird, indent in the side of his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's generally how things work out. I mean, the fun thing about that is, at least if I recall the anime correctly, Pikachu's the evolution of Pichu is supposed to store all of electricity in its cheeks. So it makes sense that you would have it against the cheek.
It's very apt, yeah.
And then
I
you can make one with two. So
I had thought that was the case, is that they both did that, and the hands were just there. But then you see the thing go into the hands. It's like, oh, it's supposed to look like yeah, it's it's very cute.
now I'm thinking about the like slightly the like dystopian Pokemon world where there's like those like mobile charge stations. You just open it up and there's like a line of like 3 Pichus. You just plug your phone in. It's like I'll be back in half an hour.
So, as mentioned in the chat, couldn't pick a username, says, isn't MagSafe specifically for older MacBooks? So, yes, the MagSafe plugs are those little tiny magnetic plugs that would snap in magnetically into the side of a MacBook and had the power points in them so they could, the power contacts, so they could charge your MacBook like that or operate it off the mains. And then Apple discontinued that. All their MacBooks have been USB-C more recently, and they brought the MagSafe name back because the Qi charging that happens on an iPhone, they're calling the new ones MagSafe because there's actually an alignment magnet right below the charging coil. These are my coils for my phone mount in my car. There's an alignment magnet below so that when you attach, when you go to put your phone down on the pad, right? So you're like, I'm going to put my phone on the pad. Sometimes you miss, or sometimes you have to slide it around a bit until it actually like gets to where it's supposed to be. And then you'll see that it starts charging. Now it's just like you put your phone down and click, it moves onto the charger moves a little bit. And that's like, now you get the optimum positioning, so it's going to charge properly. And then plus you can make mounts and other things. They're actually making a wireless or a caseless battery pack or there's some talk about them making a caseless battery pack where they'll just have a battery that has the lower magnet and charging coils in it that'll snap to the back of your iPhone. And you can just have that on there as an extra battery, and then you can just pop it off and recharge it elsewhere, and then pop another one on if you need to, if you want to have extra battery power, which is a very cool idea.
Yeah,
but they're calling it MagSafe.
For those of you who jumped at the noise, it's just a tin of candies. It got shook when he did that.
Yeah.
And then
it's okay.
Talking about the BlizzCon Metallica thing, which is largely, I mean, as we talked about, Graham was researching this and got distracted and went down the rabbit hole of actually what this is, and it's this idea which has been sort of popularized, especially on like with YouTube and stuff, is that sort of copyright and DMCA are synonymous. Which is not actually the case. The DMCA is a specific thing, and is not necessarily bad. Like the DMCA was actually created in some ways, not always, but in some ways the DMCA was created to provide the like safe harbor stuff, which causes all sorts of problems. But if the DMCA didn't exist at all, and we were just under the previous copyright set up, it would be worse. Mm-hmm. The DMCA isn't a great solution, but it was a solution to the problem that they were running into, which is YouTube, are these companies, is a company liable for the stuff that is put out onto their service? And it's saying that the Metallica thing is not actually the Metallica is not actually responsible for the DMCA. Although, again, as the YouTube comments pointed out, it's not entirely. They are not blameless in the everyone hates Metallica because of copyright aspect. Like they were hitting it real hard. Mm-hmm. They were part of the congressional hearings, or Lars Ulrich was part of the congressional hearings and stuff. So like they were not shy about being associated with the copyright like the concept. So
yeah. And technology always moves faster than law.
Yeah.
as well, which has been a larger problem too. This whole idea of the DMCA was made because it's like, oh shit, technology's already moved so fast, and we have these. You can say whatever you like about WIPO because I'm not entirely, World Intellectual Property Organization's kind of like, but as creators ourselves, there is value in us protecting the things that we make also. But yeah, but the DMCA is like, it was their attempt to try to be like, we're going to catch up and modernize and do things while we're also trying to do things for Tree. And then, but everything moved beyond that so fast that you can't turn around and just be like, well, now we have to modify it. And every year we have to modify it. And it's like, you're not going to have that happen. And that affects us in Canada even, because Canada tends to harmonize what the US does, because they're our largest trading partner.
Certainly strongly influenced by it, yeah.
And we get money through Patreon, a California company. We broadcast on Twitch, a California company. We do things through YouTube.
And especially
those companies have to go with American law because they are within the states.
Yep.
I mean, it's especially when you talk about media, Canada is greatly, influenced by American, the vast majority of our media consumption is American centric. So, but yeah, the thing that I'm really interested in is I wonder if there are a bunch of like boat manufacturers that are like super stoked about it's like Digital Millennium Copyright Act saved my business. Like, like how much of the presumably that was like, like we were talking about the violence in video games thing. There was like one of the signatories or the Congress people who was working on this thing. That was their particular, like, the thing that was important for their constituents or their special interest groups that they were representing. The boat, and everyone was like, okay, I guess we'll put that in. Does anybody care about the boat thing? No? Okay, fine, we'll put it in.
Well, that's the thing. Like the DMCA starts as whatever it starts as. It gets amplified with a bunch of stuff that goes down because of Napster and people sharing music. Specifically, like the Metallica one's a big deal because that was a piece of music that hadn't even been released.
Right. Yeah.
But the way laws get made and the way capitalism works, this was always going to become a mess.
And
this was just always going to become a mess.
And I mean, the problem
at some point.
The problem, saying obviously there is an issue with it being outdated now, and it needing to be updated. But the problem is, of course, whenever there's like new legislation to amend it or update this stuff, that gives another opportunity for RAA, MPAA, various group special interest groups to start pushing whatever their particular thing is, right? And you end up with the
introducing new bugs into the process.
Well, yeah, I mean, you end up with like the SOPA software piracy or the piracy stuff, and like that kind of stuff, starts coming in, and then people are like, whoa, let's not do that. Let's stick with the DMCA.
Yeah,
because it could be worse.
Yeah, we can already see how it's going to be worse, and the thing that from the artist perspective too, there were artists that came out and were like, no, go ahead, download my music. They were literally, and you might be like, well, why would an artist say that? Well, clearly they must care about their fans because they are like, we want you to have the music in whatever way that you get it because all I want to do is have people listen to my music. And it's like, yes, artists do want you to listen to their music. Artists do want you to watch their videos. They want you to do those things because music artists, let's talk about music artists, make the majority of their money through touring. That's just kind of how it's been for decades, is that you make no money on a record contract. The record companies make all that money, and then you make your money off of doing concerts.
How it was for decades.
Yeah. Now it is different. Now it is very different.
Yeah.
Touring has probably gone a little down lately.
Yeah.
But even before, I think, like, COVID things, I don't know that touring was necessarily a great revenue for many.
Well, it's not
anymore.
it's not something that a lot of artists can afford to do,
Yeah,
because even then
because
you're
it's
like,
expensive to do, right?
right, or you have to be able to book a venue, or you have to be able to, you have to be able to find audiences and whatever, and then you end up, having to do all the triangulation about where am I going to find a good audience. But frankly, like, the decades upon decades, it was, if you're an artist, you make the bulk of your money off touring, because that's money that gets to come in directly to your to your artist group, to your company that you've made to support your artist group. And the recording industry doesn't see any of that. So the recording industry is making their money off of you basically being like, any money that you make off the sale of a record, a chunk of that went to promotion of your record, it went to recording of your record, it went to the people who exist between the production and the recording of the record, it goes to like all these other things at the record company, and then you get a tiny chunk of that, a very tiny chunk of that. And so he's like, oh, you sold 1 million records. It's like, yeah, how are you broke? It's like, because that's how the industry sets up their contracts. You can be a massive superstar in record sales, and you can have no money. So you have to go touring.
All right, let's go through. There's a couple of stories here that we didn't talk about. That relevant. Well, I don't know. Fortnite does this thing where there's almost always Fortnite news, because they keep, we talked about, they keep updating it.
It's how they keep themselves going.
Yes.
But I'm constantly, as somebody who doesn't play Fortnite, again, I'm constantly fascinated by the game that Fortnite is in my mind doesn't line up with some of the things that I read about Fortnite. That, like, this appears to be a different game than I thought it was. But anyway, one of the things that they're going to be adding new, they add lots of new characters, and one of the new characters they're adding are aliens, as in like aliens, horrible monsters that will
Xenomorphs
eat your face. Yeah,
Right.
Xenomorphs.
Yes, they have a name.
Yeah.
Although technically xenomorph just means alien. But yeah, and maybe Ripley, which would be kind of cool.
Okay.
But the idea of like an alien running around with like a pickaxe and like a gun and just seems really bizarre to me.
Comical.
Yeah. They probably use much of the same rigging as a normal animated thing. We watched the whole thing on rigging last night, and it was very interesting. Polygon did a great video on it.
Actually, as Chad says, yeah, really easy to headshot though. Their heads are so big.
Yes.
Also, we got so the N64 game that became Star Fox Adventures has been leaked online, which it's almost like one of those like Super Mario 2 things where it's like there was this game that Rare was making called Dinosaur Planet.
Yes, I know of this.
Yeah.
And it had it was sort of a Banjo-Kazooie style thing where you would have, there's a bunch of anthropomorphic animals running around doing sort of an adventure game. And the story, this article says, the story goes that Shigeru Miyamoto noticed the similarities between the game and Star Fox, which I don't know if there were any other than there was a fox in it. But anyway,
I think it was, design-wise, yeah.
He was like, there's a fox in it. It is now a Star Fox game. And they're like, okay. Which is why Star Fox Adventure is so weird and doesn't really... And people were very disappointed in it as a Star Fox game. That, like, maybe it could have been really good as a Dinosaur Planet game.
It was also, this is the N64 game because Star Fox Adventures came out on GameCube.
Right, and because it was going to be a late N64 game, and so then they revamped it to come out on GameCube because it would take more time to make all the changes to make it a Star Fox game.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing happens with a lot of games often because the idea of adding a franchise to a game that doesn't have one is supposed to help it push sales.
And also, Crystal, who is, I think, supposed to be the main character originally in Dinosaur Planet, though she's the one that you play, she ends up getting relegated to an advisory role in Star Fox Adventures because they're like, well, if it's Star Fox Adventures, it needs to be Fox McCloud.
Right.
So we need to give Fox this thing, and he needs to be the one who's the main character, and we need to relegate the female character into this more advisory position. And people were like, what? That's good. Crystal's so awesome. We could have been playing as her. So it's like, she really made an impact on people, despite not being the playable character.
Yeah, and it would have been like a totally... Well, yeah, it would have been like a totally different game.
Yeah, because it wouldn't have had any Star Fox elements at all.
And without that hanging around its neck, maybe it would have been pretty good. Anyway.
Yeah,
and also it would have arrived like
before.
a year before.
I mean, I never played it, but I've heard from people who have that they were like, this is a really good game. Like, this is a really fun game. It just didn't make an impact because people, I think, didn't think of Star Fox being in that way.
Well, you have a certain expectation, and then you get something weird that you wouldn't expect because you're like, well, this is supposed to be part of a franchise of a thing. You know, like Federation Force.
Yeah.
Like that game probably would have been fine without the Metroid influence attached to it.
If they just didn't say it was a Metroid Prime associated game, if they just announced what it was and said that it took place in the Metroid Prime universe and didn't put the Metroid Prime branding on it immediately.
Yeah, it probably would have done fine. It probably wouldn't have sold any better necessarily.
Yeah.
Because like when you put out a new IP, that is the risk you take. It's an unknown quantity, and people like stuff that they kind of know a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know how PC gamers are often kind of obsessed with frame rates. You know, they want it's got to be 60 frames a second. I can't handle these games that are too low. I just can't play it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a game that came out for Super NES called Race Driving.
I remember this game.
It was an arcade game, like in the arcade. And it was a very, very popular game. It was considered to be a really great arcade game. And they ported it to Super Nintendo, and it came out as a Super Nintendo game. And it was a little disappointing. And that might have been because it ran at 4 frames a second.
Yeah.
Here, let me... I think I can...
Oh, if you can, that would be great.
I think I can grab the...
Can you grab the comparison video, actually? Because we can talk about how this is different.
Here, let me...
So as Paul's bringing that up, the thing is that the story specifically is that there's a hacker who has been working on changing frame rates, bumping up the performance of games by introducing the SA1 chip, which is the chip that was in Yoshi's Island, I think, and using that with, I'm pretty sure this is just based on ROMs. I don't think he's doing the actual hardware hacking, but he's using the SA1 chip to add extra processing oomph to games that could benefit from it, like Contra 3. I think he did that for. I think he did for another one as well. I should say they. I actually don't know their pronouns. And so they did this for race driving, sorry. And on the left, you can see how it originally performed. This is not Twitch doing this to you. That's literally how it looked. I remember playing it.
This was released as like a game that you could... And notice how it like speeds up on the straightaways and then slows down when he gets to the jumps.
It was phenomenally difficult to play. I rented it one time because I loved the game in the arcade. And as you can see on the right, the SA1 version is like it's very smooth, ish, because
it's a little too smooth, I think, maybe for what game it is.
Everything's locking to the flat parts of the road too. So
yeah, apparently that was a weird aspect of it. Remember a few weeks ago where we talked about the Nintendo seal of approval?
Yeah.
What the hell happened on this? Like, who
I mean,
looks at this and is like,
hey,
yes, this is a
that
game
seal
that we're
of-
going to release.
That seal of approval was to make sure the game's working didn't crash,
Yeah. And Race Driving, the funny thing about this,
not
though,
to make sure your game was good.
this port was made by Tengen, who we have talked about is notorious for making a lot of non-approved Nintendo games for the original Nintendo. This came out on the Super Nintendo. So you can make all the fun about an unapproved version of Race Driving.
The guy at the right is beating the level already.
Yeah.
It's a bad scene.
It was, I mean, I remember playing the original, I think, once in the arcade, or at least watching people play in the arcade and be like, this is so cool. And then I remember renting the game for my Super Nintendo and playing it, and it was just like I remembered in the arcade. Which is weird, because I think the arcade has a much smoother frame rate, but for whatever reason, I remember it being like, well, it's 3D, so of course it's going to be scaled down in terms of the, yeah.
Yeah, because the arcade probably would have had some sort of custom hardware running on it.
But it was nowhere near as smooth as the SA1 chip was making it. Like, that's what I remember from the arcade, is that it was not that smooth either.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't have been 30 frames a second or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's a funny article on Nintendo Life that is talking, or there was, well, the post was by Pierre Schneider, who noticed that there are 4 different red Joy-Cons that are slightly different colors of red.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. It's the tweets.
Yeah.
The tweets. The article itself was written by someone else.
Yeah. The tweets were by this that saying that basically that Nintendo keeps because they released the like red and blue one, and then the like Mario red, and then the Splatoon pink, which is a very reddish pink.
Yeah.
And then neon red. And if you put them all beside each other, they're almost indistinguishable from each other. But
you can tell the difference.
But they don't quite match.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can't tell if you do that thing where they're like further apart. You might be thinking it's just a trick of the light. When they're right next to each other, it as soon as that Mario special edition,
the red and blue edition,
red came out, I refused to call it red and blue when there's not that much blue on it.
Yeah.
There were posts all over Reddit where people were like, "Oh, I like the red from my Mario Red version of the Switch versus the special Super Mario Odyssey one are different reds."
Yeah, they're not the same reds.
It's weird.
And it is kind of like, why did they do this? Like, I know red is the principal Nintendo color, but it's like, why did you make 4 different reds? You know, like,
I mean, I would assume the first one, like, Splatoon is supposed to be pink. So,
and it is a little pink.
So they're trying for something else there, because that's the pink and green set. I'm assuming when they brought out the Super Mario one, they were like, well, we need to make it a different color because it's a special edition, so let's make it a slightly different red.
Can we get the picture up on screen actually for everyone watching, and we'll see whether they can tell
if
the
it wasn't
difference?
for the weird tweet that says the Switch can tell them apart, even though it's hard to tell because the console will generally be like, oh, you have these colors of Joy-Cons, I would just be like, did they run out of their dye lot color?
Yeah,
because
like they made the red one, they added a new one later, and then they needed a new dye lot, and this was as close as they could get.
Yeah.
There's a chip like the Joy-Cons report themselves to the Switch as to what model they are, and so it's really hard to see in this picture because this is like a photo of the computer
television
of the television screen, but you can see that the left and right red ones are very slightly different colored.
Yeah. If they hadn't, if Pierre Schneider, this is Pure IGN, so this is from IGN, if Pierre hadn't said they were different colors, though, in that picture, I wouldn't have been able to immediately pick up on the fact they were different colors. You can tell, obviously, in the real-life picture that they're all different colors.
I mean, I would say this is like one red one and then like one that's been left in the sun for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing with some of them when people were pointing them out. They were like, I thought this would have been a darker red than the other one. if we were going to change the red colors.
Yeah.
Frogger is going to become a live action game, as in like a
reality TV contest.
Yeah,
kind
of like the Don't Touch the Ground or Ninja Warrior or whatever.
Okay.
Pokemon Frog Suit.
Presumably, there'll be more than just try across this highway.
Paul,
really low budget. We just go out to a highway and film it.
I'm starting to feel like this is the world we live in, though. That
just give people little frog hats and have a drone to film it from like above.
Put them in green sumo suits.
So the article suggests that the description of what they're trying to do with this show is that they might do other video game branded things, but what we know about is the Frogger one for sure.
Oh, and it's
13 episodes of this stuff, and I don't know if 13 episodes of people dressing up in frog suits trying to do different levels has much pull.
Like, the Game Informer article says, we're assuming they won't actually get hit by a car or attacked by a deadly predator, but who's to say really? And it's like, it's true! I feel like we're at the point that there's going to be people in golf carts, like that'll be their concession. Like, we're just going to run a golf cart at you. It's like,
yeah, golf carts and go-karts do different speeds. Sounds like a very dangerous game we're making up.
If you want to watch it,
probably not nearly as...
It's going to be on NBC's Peacock, so if you subscribe to Peacock, then I guess you'll get to watch this eventually, someday, probably.
Maybe.
Like, I feel like just watching, like, just a documentary about, like, very talented Frogger players would probably be more interesting, but that's just me. I love those things.
The Fraggo Frog.
And finally, or not finally, but the last story that we didn't talk about is probably
Stadia news.
Probably the final Stadia news. Maybe
until they actually fully.
Until they finally shut down.
They haven't fully shuttered, so there's still one potential story left.
Yeah,
sometime.
It's true. So, we talked about how they've closed the Stadia development studio and laid off all the people who are involved in it. The problem is, while developing for Stadia is very similar to developing for PC, because it's effectively PC, it's not exactly the same.
No.
And so sometimes games that work well on PC don't work properly on Stadia. And but luckily, Stadia, Google has a whole team that deals with that mismatch between, getting a game working on PC and having a game work on the Stadia system.
Yeah.
Guess who was on that team? Guess where that team was? That team was part of the Stadia Entertainment division, which is now gone.
So specifically, the game I believe they talk about is Journey to the Savage Planet, which already saw a release on other platforms. But the studio that made it got purchased by Stadia and turned into SG&E, Stadia Games and Entertainment. And there have been a lot of bugs. And this is supposed to be a Stadia exclusive game. Like it's like this will be a thing that will undergo lots of whatever here. And then they fire everybody, and the people who have been playing it's like one of the only free games you get when you just get into Stadia just normally, that this game is available for you to play, and they let the whole team go, and there were all these bugs left to fix, and so people who were playing the game started contacting 505 Games, which is the publisher for like another platform, and the message they got back was, we're just the publisher. We don't actually have... You should contact the studio. And then another person at 505 got back to both of those people and said, actually, this is a Google Stadia problem. It definitely has nothing to do with us, but you need to talk to Stadia, and you need to talk to the Google Stadia people and tell them, this is the studio you bought that you now fired. Like, they were being very emphatic about Google fucked up so bad that you need to tell the agent at Google that they fucked up so bad. Which is another great laugh, even though it's tragic as hell. It's like, oh my god. And apparently, in the intervening time, Google found some engineers probably lying around in the fucking beanbag chairs behind the ping pong table and got them up and fixed the problem. Is my understanding. They managed to fix whatever the issue, a few of the freezing issues. I don't know if everything's been fixed.
Yeah, the fixed some of the issues. Maybe seems to be the case that some of the issues have been fixed, but not all of them. And so, yeah. Such is the case when you are firing the team behind something, but are still trying to keep it going.
Yeah.
And then in new news, as in stuff that's happened since this episode actually went up.
Since the writing and recording of.
There were two big video game events, the PlayStation State of Play event and the Pokemon Presents event, which is for the Pokemon...
Yeah, that one happened at 7 a.m. this morning.
Anniversary. So, as Heather, as somebody who was awake at 7 a.m., what happened?
Yeah. For Pokemon, so the basics were they showed a new trailer for Pokemon Snap, which, it's just still more Pokemon Snap, so that's great. They didn't change the date of when it's coming out, so that's good too.
Nice.
They finally revealed the Diamond and Pearl remakes, which is like brilliant diamond and shining pearl, and it has a bit of this chibi art style thing for the overworld map that I don't think not everyone is super excited about. But the big news
was Diamond and Pearl known that they were going to do that. It was just a matter of time.
It's been a rumored, hoped for game for a few years now. I missed out on that one, so I don't have nostalgia for it.
It basically just means that now everyone gets to start screaming about, when am I getting my black and white remake? That's basically what this means.
It's Gen 4. It's the big news kind of with that is it's being developed by ILCA. It's not being made by Game Freak, even though it's being supervised by a person from Game Freak and a person from something else. But they're not... Game Freak themselves is not making this.
Yeah, and this just might be a case of Grezzo getting the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask remakes for 3DS. It's probably
I don't think they've ever had a different studio remake the Pokemon mainline games.
Right, sure, but I mean, this will just... If they're picking another studio, I'm sure the idea is we know you guys can do a good job of this. You're being supervised and,
It seems weird that they have, because they've remade, Red and Blue, and they've remade some of the other ones.
Gold and Silver.
Yeah, Gold and Silver. A good portion of them have.
And the Pokemon, and Pokemon has sort of famously used essentially the same engine up until, Sword and Shield. The games were basically the same. It seems weird that had to have each remake be done by different people. Couldn't we just do the thing that we did when we originally made the game, which was use all the same stuff that we did? Just use all the same stuff that we did for the remake to make the new one.
And there's a new game there.
Pokemon Legends Arceus. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that Pokemon's name. Which is also in the Sinnoh region, which I think is what Diamond and Pearl's in. And it looks like it's an open world feudal era Japan game, and you're working on making the first ever Pokedex.
So it's the Warring States period. Nobunaga's in this.
They did not show a character that looked like Nobunaga. I feel like if they had done that, people might have been like, "Oh man, Pokemon Conquest 2," which also would have been great. It looks. I'm assuming it's going to look a little bit different than what they showed, because everything had a really bright light thing to it that I wasn't totally in love with. But
Nobunaga could be one of the professors.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be funny. The starters that they showed off for that were Cyndaquil, Oshawott, and Rowlet. So they're using...
That's a mix, isn't it?
Yeah, they're using a mix of starters from other games, which I'm assuming were these were probably some of the most popular within those types.
Right.
So I get to play a game with Rowlet again.
Yeah, two of your favorites actually, Oshawott and Rowlet, being
Rowlet
starters.
beats out Oshawott just by a
Okay.
little bit.
Fair enough.
And that also indicates that the selection of Pokemon available in the game will be pretty wide, right? If they've got like it's not just going to be like all the Pokemon from this game.
It might be from just this region for when they start. They only showed parts of it, and I'm not familiar with that. I'm not really that familiar with Gen 4. But it looks really interesting.
Cool.
I'm excited for it. I like the idea of feudal era Japan.
And the fact that it's open world means that it'll.
So there might not be actual like traditional Pokemon battles.
They showed people. No, they showed some traditional looking battling. They showed you sneaking up on a Pokemon and throwing a Pokeball at it
Right.
to catch it. It's coming out at the beginning of 2022, so it's probably like too early to get real details on it. But that's going to be the game most people are going to be really hyped for, I think.
It's cool. Means it has a camera. It has a camera, a free moving camera. You'll be able to move around. I bet.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Probably.
And so, State of Play. What happened at State of Play?
Well, there was some really cool games that I thought were really cool, like whatever Bridge to the Spirits, Solar Ash, which is being done by the Hyperlight Drifter people.
Oh, cool.
But the big thing is probably the Final Fantasy VII remake, Intergrade, which is the DLC.
The Battle Royale.
And the reason that's more interesting to me in terms of like the presentation is I think it was the only game that was like, hey, you want this DLC? You're going to want to upgrade your PS4 version to the PS5 version so that you can buy the DLC because it's PS5 exclusive.
So
I went and double checked that was a thing, that was real.
So the game is for PS4, PS5, but you can only get the DLC if you've got the PS5 version?
Yep.
And
Wow.
you have in the notes here that so the Final Fantasy VII remake is getting the DLC for Yuffie, which is PS5 exclusive, but you can upgrade your PS4 copy unless it's the free version from PlayStation Plus.
Yes, PlayStation Plus for the PS4. We're getting Final Fantasy VII remake as the free game in March.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like you'll be able to upgrade that into the PS5 version so that you can get the DLC, because the DLC is also not standalone, which means you do have to have this game or the Intergrade version or whatever.
Which is fair, because what that's basically saying is like you can't just have a free game and upgrade it to the better version of a game for free. It's like you're going to have to pay for it to have it on PS5 one way or the other.
I mean,
And
Sony put out the PS5. They're going to want people to move over to the PS5 eventually.
Yeah.
But we're in that in-between period where most games you're going to be able to get like a good portion of them on PS4.
Yeah.
But they're still going to want you to go to the PS5.
Yeah.
And so that's why I found this interesting. That it was like, yes, here's the start of like, here's the game that was incredibly popular. We'll let you have it for free on the PS4 if you have the PS Plus, whatever. So varying definitions of what free means. And hopefully you'll be like in love with it if you're not already, and you'll get a PS5 and you'll get this DLC with Yuffie, who I don't know if she's a popular character or not, because I don't know Final Fantasy VII, but the Moogle outfit she was in, I want every cosplayer in.
Okay.
She's pretty popular.
I would hope so if she's getting her own story DLC.
So, and then there's also 2 mobile games that are Final Fantasy VII,
Yes.
Yeah.
which
Some
I
sort
don't know
of
if
battle royale thing.
Battle Royale, right? Which seems very weird.
It's like 30 years before Final Fantasy VII or something.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like your soldiers.
Yeah, I don't remember what the other one was.
Probably an endless runner or something.
Let's call it a match 3. I don't give a shit. Who cares?
Yeah, I would say notably, no mention of Final Fantasy Remake like Chapter 2 or the rest of it or whatever. But anyway.
I assume they'd save that for later.
Maybe they just like don't like the
Latter half of the game?
The second part of the game. They just want to like keep using the assets, and they really like the world from the first part of the game, and they're just like, let's just hang out in that world and make a bunch of games in that world, and we don't want to deal with the rest of the game.
Who cares what happens when you leave Midgar? Really, like F that, you know?
Yeah.
I could. I mean, I don't, but I know people who do, and who would probably be very angry at you for that statement. So, careful.
Yeah.
I'd like you to live longer.
So, not saying. I mean, it's entirely possible that Graham will have some things to say about Final Fantasy VII. I know, shocking. In CheckPoint next week, maybe. And maybe there'll be even more info about it by then. Who knows?
Yeah, because sometimes what happens after a presentation is like more information gets released a day or two later. That's just like clarifications of things we didn't want people to think, or just actual updates, or websites finally go up that give you more detailed, on point information they couldn't put in the presentation.
Yeah. So you've got about a week to prep all your really shitty takes to put in the YouTube comments to tell Graham why he's wrong about things and to irritate him. So that's always a great idea, because Heather has to go through all of those things.
You know,
and so when you do that, you overwork her tremendously.
I'm going to ban you from our YouTube comments. So you can't respond to anyone. And
what's great is if you prepare your bad takes now, you can make sure that they will have nothing to do with what Graham actually said in the episode.
Yep.
For some reason, I was just realizing that I love that the two Final Fantasy worlds that are currently really being pushed are Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy XIV.
Multiples of each other, yes.
It's like, what happened before 7? Doesn't matter. What happened after 7? Doesn't matter till 14.
I'm pretty sure they announced 16 like a while ago. But they like, no new information has come out on that one.
And I mean, Final Fantasy 15 exists and was fun and people liked it, but you know, it doesn't have 7 games coming out about it.
All I ask is that if you're gonna make aggressive comments on YouTube, try to make them a different kind of aggression.
Exactly.
Just make them well worded. You'll probably be fine.
Are we done?
All right. Let's. That was like the episode of CheckPoint. That was a very long chill point. So let's talk about what's coming up, which is Friday Night Paper Fight, where it is going to be arena. So it is not going to be paper fight, but it's the thing that we call Friday Night Paper Fight still. And they're going to be doing some Kaldheim sealed, because that's the newest, hottest thing. Or sealed or limited anyway. I think they are currently in the process of deciding whether it is going to be sealed or draft.
It'll be a surprise for everyone.
But they're going to be doing playing with the new Kaldheim set. And then on Saturday, James continues to escape from Tarkov. Who knows what will happen there? Will he escape this time? Probably not.
He's only got so much time to figure it out.
And only 30 backpacks to sort.
Yeah. Maybe the last backpack will allow him to escape. But what's happening on Saturday evening at 6 o'clock is Loading Ready Live. That's right. I'm very excited about this episode, actually. We know some of the things that are going to be happening in this episode already.
It's been some intense early planning.
Yeah.
More so than normal.
I have to go make some purchases, I think.
Yes.
Maybe do it tomorrow.
Slightly concerning amount of early planning.
If you do them tonight, then I can have some...
Yeah, then you can be involved. Okay.
And then on Sunday, something else Heather is involved with is Rhythm Cafe, where you are now onto different taiko drumming. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, we finally made it to the... We finally finished the first game in the Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythmic Pack thing. So now we can start the second game and find out how we destroy stuff that is not a timeline. I'm assuming we destroy fairy tales or other countries.
I mean, if it's like most like movies or TV shows or video games, now that you've done time travel, you have to do like dimension travel, I guess. Is the only thing left? Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is that the way we ended our somewhat made up story about Professor Subway was really on point.
Okay. And then on Monday, It is Alien First Law, episode 3, or session
Trois.
session
It's
3.
session 3.
Episode. It's the 4th episode, but we had session 0. Super cool. If you want to check out more aliens, and Fortnite doesn't have enough aliens for you, you can watch Alien First Law. First sessions are all up on YouTube. We got the, speaking of DMCA stuff, we got the
Got 1 and 2 up.
Copyright sorted out. So yeah, they're having a lot of fun being. It turns out that when you're an artificial synthetic person, being in a really scary situation isn't actually that big a deal because you have no emotions in that respect. So you're like, wow, all these humans are really uncoordinated all of a sudden. That's totally weird. Anyway, it's a super neat game, and episode 3 is coming up. And then after that, on Monday evening, 8 o'clock, later than we normally do for El Funko being in Australia reasons, is going to be more Play It Forward. And then we're back to the regular schedule for 9 o'clock on Tuesday, followed by Control on Talking Simulator, followed by more Resident Evil 4 on Let's Nope. So,
Awesome.
All sorts of cool stuff coming up. loadingrerun.com/live is the place to go to see the full schedule and the calendar and all that good stuff.
As far into the future as James has put in.
Yeah, hit up that Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We do appreciate when you can do stuff like that. Don't ever give more than you can give.
And let's thank all the awesome people who subscribe to the stream. Starting with Dandy Swag for 35
Hooray.
months.
Drazvin for 42 months. Welcome back.
Lyrazel64 for 17 months. Welcome back.
Kradeki Yessi, gifted by Will of Tacos. It was the Will of Tacos that you subscribe.
I could go for tacos.
Me too. Chinese Fire Drill has been gifted by 3 4/5. Thank you for that gift sub.
It's like a fire drill. Ramiel117 for 44 months. Welcome back.
Ariel 15 for 37 months.
Zale 250 for 48 months.
The Dave Saw for 7 months.
Eva Lens for 51 months.
Phoenix Wright. Yes, I've definitely won there. Thank you for that gifted sub 3 4/5.
Marcus Evans. Welcome. You're going to hate this. 3 4/5. Thank you.
We do play some violent video games on here, so just FYI. Malort, gifted by
Malort.
Malort.
It's actually it's a Jepson's Malort, which is a drink that is Chicago based. It's a botanics based drink like gin is.
Malort.
Yeah, Malort.
Prophet X05 for 22 months. Welcome back.
Welcome back, Leland Yee, who got this gift from the Americat.
Femslayer, gifted by 3 4/5.
Sacranos for 58 months. Hi.
What? Got this
good
from
name.
3 4/5. Heather's a fan.
Is that when Metallica was being talked about? Somebody gave a subscription to Guar.
Yeah. I think so.
Vegetales for somebody's into Vegetales.
Vegeta L Super Saiyan 4. But I like VeggieTales 4 is way better.
Wow,
Yeah,
I
I wanna
really
see
thought that
VeggieTales
this was
written this
somebody
way.
who was just spelling VeggieTales weird.
Oh, wow.
I apologize, Vegeta.
Yeah, sorry to like confuse you with like Larry the superhero and the lies.
God, I hope you're in the chat.
Yes.
Oh, you are? Okay.
4 FPS, gifted by 3 4/5.
The only way to play. It is one frame. Cusick! Welcome back. You've been here 53 months.
There's probably video out there somewhere of like the cucumber from VeggieTales, but with like Super Saiyan hair.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that.
Wearing like the body armor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's some letters. What do they say, Beej?
Can you read them?
Working it out. No, I can read the sun at the end, so it's referring to somebody in.
Oh, it's
in
Nobunaga.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Oda Nobunaga-san. Okay, that makes sense.
This is getting
I
weird.
don't think 3 4/5 plays by the same rules as the Meerkat. But if they
I
do,
I like it. Gifted by the Meerkat, gifted by 3 4/5.
welcome, gifted by the Meerkat. VeggieTales Forever got this from Demon Fire. You might not like this channel either. We play a lot of violent video games.
I don't know. VeggieTales is kind of a classic.
And Vegeta LS, gifted by Demon Fire.
And thank you, PharaohBender27 for the 300 bits.
The bits. Thank you.
The bits.
Thank you, all you awesome people, for subscribing and following and watching and all that great stuff. We will talk to you later, and we've got Friday Night Paper Fight in about an hour. But for the moment, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, it's amazing how
So many have
Rowlet
got one
can
back there
teleport.
too.
All right, bye everybody.